All right, let's go ahead and put this on the screen. Get started. May have some folks joining late. If they do, they do. Okay. Foundations of programming. Gets up on our screen. Now let's take a look at what we have going. So we'll go to the grade screen first, just to check on our status of everything. Last week we had two things, 101, 102. So those hopefully are all turned in. I know most everyone had those. There's a few people that were still missing last week's assignment, but most everybody got it done and got it done pretty early in the week. Good for you. Get it done early, take a long weekend every week. Let's see. So we're in 1.03 this week. See, but this is the one assignment due this week, one the next week, and then one on the 24th. So we're going to start with printing strings today. So not literal, not like a string the kitty would play with. This is activities there. Printing strings is a computer term. So let's look at our printing strings lesson. It's a string of characters. It's a string of letters put together, which is loading very slowly. Here it is. All right, printing strings. So the purpose of this course, take everything you know about printing and chuck it out the window. In programming, the print doesn't mean putting ink on paper and send it to a printer. It means display on the screen. That's what printing means in programming. Display on the screen. So when we think of printing, we don't have anything to do with the printer when it comes to programming. So after completing the lesson, you'll be able to demonstrate an understanding of the characteristics of strings, write a computer program using the print function, and identify and describe types of programming errors. So, all right, let's look at what we have. So the print function in Python is used anytime you want your program to display something, which is often, unless you love blank screens. This is what you want your user to see. If you don't print it, they don't see it. So let's look at their guided activity here. Here's a simple, very simple program. Hashtag print example, define main, print. This is a print statement in Python, end main. When you just have main at the end, it just means end it. So it's saying, all right, Python, here's my main program. Here's what I want you to execute. So read the code, try to predict the output. This one's not bad. I bet you can predict the output on this. Right? Let's run it. There's the output. This is a print statement in Python. Exactly what is inside the quotes. It prints everything that's inside the quotes. Let's look at the next slide here. Under the first print statement, type another that will display I am printing exclamation mark. All right, so to do that, we can just duplicate what's already there. We need to be indented over the same amount because when we're inside our main function, everything should be indented over to know so the computer knows when it ends. And it's also visually easy to read for the programmer when you have it indented over. So if we say, I am printing, exclamation mark. Oh, there we go. Now when we hit run program, we get two lines. It does this line first. This is a print statement in Python. And then the one we added, I am printing. So right there, let's check the last thing it says. What we got here? Let's look at this one. Print example. Define main. Print. This is a print statement in Python. I'm printing. Will this print? Let's run the program. Parse error. Bad input on line 6. Can you see the mistake? Yes. All you have to do is compare it to the print statements above it, and you can see why that caused an error. As we said in these other print statements, it prints everything, literally everything inside the quotes. The problem is here, it forgot the quotes. It does have the parentheses, which is good, but without the quotes in there, it got confused because it doesn't recognize what will this print is. Now we're saying, no, that's just literally what I want you to put on the screen. So we can fix that, and now it works wonderfully. Very simple. And a lot of times when we're writing a program, that's the little things that are wrong. We left out some little punctuation, something the computer was looking for. All right. So that's just Lots of things like this built into this lessons where you get to try and play around. I mean, we can do whatever we want. We can add more print statements here. Print, yippee. You know, this is actually a live Python program, so we can add whatever we want. So this is a good place if you're trying to learn something and the lessons teach you something. You can go in here and play around with it and see what you can make the program do without worrying about it, because you can always just restart it. You can reset it, click, and it'll take away everything you added. All right, so let's talk about a string. String what? Yeah. In programming, a string, this is a non-numeric data type. Non-numeric means not numbers. This is letters or characters. It's a sequence of the letters, numbers, or symbols. So it'll treat it, even though it's a numbers, if it's a string, it's going to treat it like it's a letter. So letters, numbers, spaces are symbols of alphanumeric information. That means any combination of letters, numbers, symbols is alphanumeric. Could be a single letter, could be a word, could be a phrase. So to make Python print your strings exactly as you wrote them, got to put them in quotation marks, which we already saw on the last page. So a string within quotation marks is called a string literal. That's the term for it, string literal, because it's literally going to print what you put in between the quotation marks. It's a series of keyboard characters included within opening and closing quotation marks. So it's a string literal because it is literally what you type, no matter what. So you can roll over this code and see how the print function is used. Print, that's Python's print function. This is the string value. All right. So the Python statement tells your computer to display the phrase, this will print, because the print function instructions are built into Python. Someone else wrote the code to make print do what it does. We get to make use of it. So remember, we always have to have the parentheses, and we need the quotes to print a string literal. So print, are we having fun yet? Here's the output. Let's look at some more examples over here. Writing your first program. All right, it's time to say hello world. This is the traditional way to start your programming journey. In fact, there's a collection of hello world programs online out there where people wrote that as their first program. Even Steve Jobs and Bill Gates started with a simple program like hello world. So I'm not going to play the video in class. You can go back and look at that, but this will tell you how to write your first program, and it's 48 seconds. All right. You can also look at the text version where it'll read it to you. I mean, you can read it instead of the video. So there's a lot in there, but I'll let you look at that on your own there, so you have something to go back to. But basically it is writing the program hello world, details how to do that. And it's important at the beginning, we do these hashtags, we do comments, like you put your name, the date, and what your program is, so people know what your program is. All right, so here's the steps to write your first program, which is detailed in this video right here. So open idle, which is right up here in the menu. When you click that, that opens the program. So there's our programming window box. So it's got, and you can make it bigger, but it's got the place that you program up top and the output comes down bottom. You can clear the output in between runs, you know. So let's get that out of the way. So first thing I want you to do is add your comments in the code window. Start writing your program by adding comments. This is stuff that the computer will ignore when you put the hashtag. So on separate lines, type your name, date, and the program purpose. So this is called the program heading. This is the heading to your program. Computer totally ignores this because you put the hashtags. So if I went back and put that in here, I'd put hashtag Brock, hashtag September 6th, and hashtag start, or let's say first program. And the computer ignores all of that because the hashtags, that's just comments. So if somebody else picked up your program and was looking at it, they would know it was yours. They would know the purpose of it and all that good stuff. All right, so we added our comments. Now we need to start with our function. So add a blank line. We can always add blank lines. The computer ignores the blank lines, but that makes it easier for us to read before we start something. Oh, define. So we got to define our main program. This tells the computer where your program starts. It tells the Python interpreter where to begin. So we have to put the proper punctuation. So we say main. We got to put parentheses, open, close parentheses, and then a colon right after it. So that is what Python is looking for when you define the function. And this is our main function. We'll learn later we can define many functions. But since we only have one function that we're doing, one main thing that we're doing, we'll just call it main, and that's our main function. All right. Indent and print. So we're going to use the print function to display hello world. All right. And we're going to use 4 spaces. When we indent, each level of indentation is 4 spaces. Just makes it easy to read. It makes it consistent. And everything underneath the main would need to be indented the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. Print. Quotes. Hello world. End quote, end parentheses. All right, exactly like they had it there. And then close our function. Again, we can put another space to make it easier to read. Go down, back up, say, okay. So it says this is the beginning of our function. And when we repeat the name with the parentheses, that ends the function. And then run your program. So you can log into Buzz and do this exact same thing. Make sure when you run it that you don't get an error. You should get hello world, should get what's right there. If you don't get that, somewhere you left some punctuation out. You typed something wrong. Something's misspelled, something. If you don't get this exact output when you run this program. So that is your first program. So try that out there in idle. Make sure you can do that. I'll give you a minute to do that. We'll pause here while you click on the idle button and make sure that you can write a program that says hello world. So give that a shot there for a moment. I will pause. Yep, make sure you're logged into Buzz and give that a shot. If you want to add a second print statement underneath that, you know, doesn't hurt to practice with it and play around. All right, let's move on here. If you're still working on it, that's fine. Good practice. So you run your program. Let's move on to page 5 here. All right, bugs happen. And some of you've already seen that when you wrote that. You already had an error. We're human. We make mistakes. In programming, there's always errors. It's if you write a longer program than what we just did without any errors first shot, you're doing well, because it's easy to leave off a colon or forget a parentheses or just write the wrong statement first. The more mistakes and errors you make when coding, the more opportunities you'll have to practice and learn what can go wrong. So while the goal is to eventually get it right, getting it wrong a few times is what gets you there. So we've referred to errors as bugs. You may have heard that. And so one of the programmer's jobs is to fix bugs. So it's called debugging. Now, this is interesting. Here's a little picture here. Where did the term bug come from? There's been lots of speculation, but here's the common legend that goes with it. Grace Hopper was testing the Mark II computer at Harvard. The problem was not a coding error. It was a moth. It had wedged itself into the machine, and the operators found it when they searched for the problem. And then when they removed the unfortunate moth and taped it in their logbook with a note that this was the first actual case of a bug being found. That was it. The computer had been debugged and the term stuck. And back then, you know, when computers had like vacuum tubes and all kinds of mechanical stuff in there, so the bug actually caused it to not work. You know, bugs sitting in our computer today wouldn't affect it the same, but that was it. So there's a little spotlight. Grace Hopper, she lived from 1906 to 1992. Much deserving of this title of most likely to coin a term. She's credited with popularizing the term debugging as well as compiler. She also created the first compiler. She's known as Amazing Grace for obvious contributions to programming, as well as her work at a U.S. Navy Rear Admiral. So Grace was in the Navy and came up with the term debugging because she literally debugged their computer to make it work. All right. Preventing programming problems. So there's different types of errors. So here's three common ones. Syntax errors. You probably see those most commonly. That happens when you've broken a programming language rule because you could have the proper spelling, grammar, punctuation. Error. This sentence shouldn't have any errors. Well, do you notice any errors in spelling and punctuation? It says this shouldn't have any errors, but shouldn't, there should be a comma. Not a comma. It should have a apostrophe between the N and the T. Any is spelled wrong. That's not how you spell any. And there's no period at the end. So correcting it, this sentence shouldn't have any with an A errors, period. So that's an English class, how you have errors, language rules. In programming, they have rules for their structure too. Like in print hello world, that's going to have all kinds of problems because we didn't put the parentheses and the quotations. We didn't follow the proper programming language rule. So runtime errors, this happens when you run the program. It usually means there's a problem with the value. Like maybe you said print 11 divided by 0. Well, that'll confuse the computer. Actually, a computer would try to calculate that, and it would try to calculate it forever, the way that computers think. But programmers have to put that into the language that if someone tries to divide by 0, just give it an error because you're not allowed to divide by 0. There's no answer for that. It's an error. So correction, print 11 divided by 7. Now notice when they're actually using numbers in a number sense, they don't put quotes. This actually would work. It would print the actual answer of 11 divided by 17. Logic errors. You may hit these pretty often too. That means the program ran, but you didn't get the results you thought you would. The syntax is fine. You got all the punctuation correct. You have to notice these by checking to see what happens when you run it. If you don't get what you expected, you got to go back and figure out why. Print, grass is purple. And then you're like, wait a minute, that's not what I'm supposed to have. Grass is green. See, that's where you actually just typed something wrong. It'll print it, but the information's incorrect. It's fine computer-wise. The computer understands that, and it's happy with it. But then you go back and go, wait a minute, grass is not purple. But you may run into logic errors. So, all right, so here's some tips. If you're stuck, first, check your spelling and capitalization. Python does pay attention to capital letters and lowercase letters. It is case sensitive. Check your punctuation. Did you miss a quote? Did you miss parentheses? Did you miss a colon? Check your spacing, like those indentions. Everything should be indented the same number of lines inside the function. Check before and after. Sometimes the error is hiding above the line or just below the line. It'll tell you the error's on line 6, but it may be line 5 that caused line 6 to make an error. And talk it out loud. Sometimes if you read it out loud, like, it should read like a really weird story. Print, parentheses, quote, hello world, parentheses. Quote, parentheses. Once you say it out loud, your ears may hear the bug. So, all right. Last page of the lesson, then we'll get to our assignment for the week. The post-mortem review. We're going to do this after every lesson, and I include it on the template. Professional programmers develop this strong habit for success early on. They call it the post-mortem review. It's a short written statement that evaluates how your project went. Did your program work? How are you reflecting on it? How could it be improved? Because a lot of times after you get through writing the program, it's like, oh, really? I could have made the program do this, and that'd probably be better. And you'll put that in your post-mortem review. So here's a sample post-mortem review. What was the purpose of your program? Well, the purpose of my program was to say happy birthday to my sister. It also gave me a chance to practice my Python skills. How could your program be useful in the real world? Well, I'm going to show it to my sister on her birthday, and it'll be like a birthday card that I programmed instead of I bought, right? What is a problem you ran into, and how did you fix it? Well, I kept typing happy birthday without the quotation marks and it wouldn't work. Right. Got to have the quotation marks. When I realized I had the syntax wrong, I fixed it and then it worked. Describe one thing you would do differently next time you write a program. I learned it's important to pace myself and pay attention to the details. When I got the syntax wrong, I learned what happens when I don't use quotation marks. Now I know I need to pay attention to my code so I don't leave out important information. So this will be at the end of your program. It's usually worth like 20 or 30 points too. It's pretty substantial. So don't forget to answer the questions. There's no wrong answers. You just answer them, right? All right, assignment template and rubric. So I'm going to show you, and I've already done a template in our classroom. If we go to classwork. All right, so you guys are the programming, right? So pay attention to the program. Cyber's the other class. Don't worry about those. Template and rubric right here. Let's look at the rubric first. So if I click on the rubric, it'll tell you this is how this program is graded. A program design, this is worth up to 10 points. Your program contains all the required elements. All right, I guess let's look at the program first so you know what we're talking about when we're talking about the rubric. Couldn't preview file. Oh, that's not nice. Try downloading it instead. Okay, I can download it. I'm going to open it with the Google Docs. It should just make you a copy of it when you click on it. It may be giving me fits because I'm in a teacher account here. But all right, here's the assignment. Part 1 of the assignment. Write a program to display a message to the screen. This may be a poem, a song, or information about you. You get to choose what you're printing, what your message is. Use the following guidelines. First, you're going to use idle, right? All of our programs will be written in Python idle. Use comments, type a heading that has your name, date, and a short description, just like we did in our practice problem. Hashtag name, hashtag date, hashtag a description of what you're doing. Then decide on the message you want to display. Here's some ideas. Maybe your favorite poem, maybe your favorite song, maybe a few sentences sharing information about you. Whatever you want to do, you have total freedom to decide what you're going to do. So make sure you set up your main statement, define your main. Don't forget the parentheses and the colon, but use at least 5 print statements to display your message to the screen. You can do 50 if you want to, but there's a minimum of 5 to get full credit. And then conclude your program with this main statement right here. Follow the Python style conventions with indentation. Make sure everything's indented properly. And then run your program to make sure it's working and fix any errors. All right. And this isn't working for some reason. This is just a picture of what your output would look like. But you know what output looks like. So then insert your program code here. Like here's somebody's example code, right? You take this and replace this with yours. This doesn't have a name, but you put your name, date. This is printing streams program. Here's my program. Here's my first line, second line, third line, fourth line. Right, here's all of that good stuff. Main. So print, insert your code right here. Delete that out. Now, to do that, because some people don't think about it, I've written the program here. I'm going to go and I'm going to highlight and copy it. I don't want you to take a picture of this. I want you to actually highlight it and copy it. Copy. And then I'm going to go to my template and I'm going to take and replace this and paste mine there. There it is, Mr. Brock, September 6th, first program. All right. And then I can put some spaces there before the post-mortem review. So I'm going to copy and paste. So I can go in here and, type it. It's not a picture. All right. You can give a screenshot of your output if you want to. That's your choice. If you want to go take a screenshot of the output and paste it underneath, that's okay. This doesn't ask for that. That's not part of the assignment, but you can do it if you just want to show your output. And look, now when I pasted it, this kind of messed up. It's got this spacing wrong. I had to fix my spacing because when it pasted it, it made those a lot bigger than what it needed to be. So make sure your spacing is corrected on there. And then here's that post-mortem review. I said those 4 questions. What was the purpose of your program? You cannot screenshot your input. Do not screenshot the input. It actually has to be copied and pasted. Good question, Serenity. Because if there's an error with it, I'm going to copy this input. I'm going to go to idle, and I'm going to paste it in here and see where the error is if you didn't find it. And I'm going to run the program. If it's a screenshot, I have to retype the whole thing, and I may not even retype the error wrong. So I got to make sure. I should be able to copy your program and paste it back in here and then run the program. That's why you do not screenshot the input. Copy and paste it. You can screenshot the output if you want to include a picture of the output, but do not screenshot the input. But there's the 4th question. What was the purpose of your program? Type your answer here. How could it be used in the real world? What was the problem? Oh, I didn't have any errors. I didn't have any errors at that time, right? Maybe you did have an error. If you didn't have an error, say, I didn't have an error this time. And then what's one thing you do differently? Oh, maybe I would choose a different thing to print, or so whatever like I said, there's no wrong answer as long as you answer it. What would you do differently? I don't know what you did differently, right? I would make it maybe I'd include the artist's name next time. I did a song, but I didn't put who the band was. So, but this is how you turn it in. Complete this template, and then when you get back here, go back. Get back into your Python programming. Go to the printing strings assignment, and this is where you attach that Google file. This should create it in your Google Docs, the template, right? This will create a copy and save it in your Google Drive. Then you can just choose it right here. Choose the file. Choose your Google file where that template is. And after you do that, then you just submit it. All right. Use the template that I've got set up for you here. And I'll go make sure that template's working. It's just giving me fits this morning. That's not really this. That's just a sample output. So as long as you can see the rest of this, we're in good shape. But I'll go back and double check, make sure it's working. Okay. That's it, guys. You get to write your first program. You get to pick what you want to print. Just make sure you have at least 5 print statements. If you want to use more than 5, no problem. Do your favorite song. You can just ramble on about something. If you just want to print things you want to say, you want to tell about yourself, you want to tell about your vacation, you want to tell about your friend, you want to tell about the cool movie you saw. I don't care what you print. You get to choose it. So, all right, guys. Unless you have any questions, I'll let you go. And you have your assignment. I'll see you later.